Alan, good to see you and congratulations on your takeover. First thing to ask you really is why Burnley?
Well, thank you, Vinny. Thank you for the welcome as well. As I was saying before, this is the first time, so I'll try to give you everything that you need, but I'm sure we'll get opportunities to speak more later. I mean, Burnley for us, as we looked around, fit a number of things that we felt was important to us long term. Primarily looking at kind of the passion, the operating structure, the opportunity for growth, and obviously, the ability for us to actually have an impact as, a management team and as an organization. And when we looked around at various clubs, one of the things that stood out was this club in this community is unbelievable. The way that it's brought it together, the way that it's at the center of the community, and to be quite honest, the longevity of the manager, the ability for him specifically to have punched well above his weight as far as a team, and the financial stability of the club and the way that it's been run all led us to the place that we've come to, which is we thought this was a great opportunity. We think that there's some building blocks here that we can actually work with.
What are those building blocks you believe that stands this club in such good stead to really move forward from here now?
Well, look, I really love if you look at the sport and how important it is both in the country but in the world, and the Premier League being obviously the sports league that is the greatest sports league in the world, quite frankly, in my opinion. And that relationship between the community and the club, and then that relationship and being able to let people see and feel it. So if you look at the way that I think about things, there's kind of two specific pieces. It's the way you interact with whatever team you support and the way that they interact with you and the things that you see as being critical to that, but also the way that they treat people. So it's really important to us to see that there's a very, very solid historical relationship between fan, community, club. Where you sit in the country and the passion of the game in this part of the country, it's not a corporate environment. It's not a tourism environment. It's very much live, breathe, die Burnley football.
Alan, am I right in thinking as well that you're moving completely to the area, and so therefore, just how hands-on are you going to be with the football club?
So initially, I will be split between London, New York, and here, but probably 80% of my time here. I'm very hands-on. When I say that, strategic vision and the ability to help people, to achieve that vision, not, hey, I'm going to be the guy that necessarily is going to go rewire the Wi-Fi, although I'll make sure it gets fixed because I can't stand it, but that's a different story. but it'll be very hands-on because it's very different. I mean, I was joking before coming in. I mean, I've already experienced a few things early on that just need to change, and you don't do that unless you're living in it every day. You come and visit for once in a while and you go away. You think everything's great and you just leave it to other folks. That's not our style, and that's not my style. So we're very hands-on, but that's not to take away from those that are doing the significant job that they've been doing and will continue to do.
And you've met with Sean Dyche now, so what will change with him? What was discussed, and how did the meeting go overall?
Well, you'd have to ask him as to how the meeting went. I'll tell you how I thought it went, but I thought it went well. I've been looking forward to it for quite some time. I would say that, as far as things changing, I don't think anything changing other than he knows very clearly that I am in complete support where he may have wondered or guessed. We're very, very big fans. We like consistency. We like longevity. And the other part of this is we see what an amazing manager he is and leader. And leadership is really important to us.
That suggests you're committed to Sean Dyche remaining as manager long term. Would that be fair?
It's absolutely fair. And it's really going to be up to him as to that. But yes, yes.
How likely then is it that Sean will be able to make signings in this window? And what areas Is he looking to strengthen? What did he say to you?
I'll let him tell you what he's looking to strengthen. I will not get in his way nor make a mistake of doing that. But I will tell you that, look, he does have some things that he's looking at. We're supportive of what he's looking at. And yes, if he would like to go forward on the things that he wants to do, we'll be there and support what he needs to have happen.
I won't keep ramming home the transfer lines, but I will ask you one more on that because of your data analytics background. How are decisions going to be reached when it comes to bringing players in?
So nothing's going to deviate from the way that things are happening currently. I think you'll see us get more involved on the analytical side. I think we're not the only club that's probably thinking about that, but we're heavy users of data and analytics. Obviously coming from the background that we've come from, so it will probably evolve further as we move into our longevity here. But I would expect it's going to stay fairly consistent at the moment.
And budget-wise, will much change, or is it more a case of Sean being able to move more swiftly in the transfer market once targets are identified?
I would expect it the latter rather than the former right this moment. I would have liked to have had more time so that we could be in a different position to give you a different answer. But I think the prudence here is being able to move swiftly and support what needs to be done rather than the size of the checkbook.
This is a very all-encompassing question, Alan, but how would you describe then the long-term and short-term ambitions for the place, and what would you say is your number one priority now?
Well, so let's go with the short term. We need to stay in the Premier League and do a really good job in this window. Long term, I mean, you may have seen it. I mean, we want to be Britain's favorite underdog when it comes to this team. There's no doubt about that. So what did I miss? Was he?
Well, we said the first priority, you've encompassed that as well. But when you talk about that, I saw an interview with yourself where you talked about giving people a story, and that's how you're going to go about growing the club, I'd imagine.
So, look, the ambitions for the club should be very much of interaction well beyond the boundaries of the local community. And so a lot of that takes something special that people can feel to be part of. And we need to give them those opportunities. And those opportunities I can't describe yet because I don't know. But our jobs, I think you guys are in that business, is to connect people with what's happening and to give them a reason to want to be involved.
How does it compare to when you went in at Real Salt Lake?
Very different, to be honest. I mean, I went into it. The only similarities, and I've said this here, is small market club. Okay, that's where you stop. In Salt Lake, we were not in a great position as far as a club, as far as how we played and where we stood, and we had a lot of stuff that we had to change. I don't see that here, and I was also an outsider coming in there, and it feels a little bit the same in that regard here.
The academy has a big role to play, I'd imagine, as well in the future, doesn't it?
It does. I think they've done a really good job in building a fantastic academy. I love the facilities. I think they're awesome, and I think that we can do a really great job of expanding both the intake as well as the productivity of the academy. But I love it.
I apologize if I'm getting ahead of myself. What about the stadium itself as well? How can you improve that? Can you expand?
Well, there are definitely things that can improve within the stadium. Give us some time to look through, but I want the experience for everyone to be different. Again, if we want connectivity, that goes across not just the interactive to stories, but also your experience when you're here and taking that away. We've got some improvement that we can do there.
Finally, for me, Alan, I promise. Was there an inevitability that you would end up in the Premier League? Obviously, we know about your attempts at Sheffield United as well.
I don't think it's ever inevitable. I'm not even sure it was inevitable that we'd actually end up with a club. I think it's more challenging than I think people give you credit for as far as to actually conclude a transaction. And I'm sure that there's others that are going through the same process that wonder if it will ever end as well. But I would say it's never inevitable. I would tell you that, in all fairness, I started out with my team looking at the championship. We ended up in the Premier League because we felt we found something very special.
Well, it'd be nice to see you on Sky Sports as well for the Manchester United game at Turf Moor. I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
I am looking forward to that. We were hoping to have a first game before this, but we're looking forward to it.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vinny. Can we move over, please, to Mandy Henry?
Hi there, Alan.
Hi, Mandy.
I just wonder, you talked about the Premier League being the best in the world. Why do you think that?
Well, there's a couple of things that at least drive me to that. And one is, the quality and the stories and the style that comes out of it, but also the breadth. I mean, you can see the Premier League anywhere in the world. I mean, I've been on holiday in Asia. I've worked in Asia. I've worked in Latin America. I've been around the world. You can always see the Premier League on. There is not another single sports league that has that breadth of followership as well as connectivity to the world. And that's pretty special. When you then take it down to the level of play and the quality of what you see play there, I mean, this is the ambition of everyone. I mean, maybe there's a couple of people in Spain that don't think so, and in Italy, but the reality is I think they really would like to play here. And that is, and you see those stories all the time because this is something special. It's not just a platform, to be seen on. It's actually the quality of what's actually happening every single day. Now, it's been a very strange year. Okay, so you've got people beating people and doing things that just haven't happened as frequently, but I think that's great. Because on any given day, the chance that somebody's at the bottom of the table can beat somebody that's at the top of the table, that also tells you something about the league. And that's what you want. You don't want a consistent, mediocrity. You want consistent, unexpectedness, surprises that come out of nowhere. Those are the stories that keep people captivated. And that's what you see in the EPL in a very different way. And it's something that everyone in the world can relate to, which is football. That's the fact.
When we go to the training ground as reporters, that the players always tell us that the main aim is to stay in the Premier League for Burnley. So do you hope to try, I know this might take time, but to build a more ambitious club?
I think so. I think that, coming back to it, we see the building blocks, as I mentioned to Vinny, this is a platform that we see that can give you opportunity, if you will, a stepping stone. There's things here we think to reach beyond where we are today. I can't give you a time frame because a lot of it takes, who would have thought that we were going to go into another lockdown, if we were 6 months ago. So the hard part is not knowing what's next for us in the short term. But I can tell you that if we're fortunate to be here still in 20 years, the ambitions of this club will be very different than what they are today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, man. I just want to check, have we got BBC Northwest Tonight on? Because I haven't got a name for it and I can't see anybody from BBC. Doesn't appear to be anybody there, but I'm going to, if you would raise your hand if you can, I'll go to Andy Bays in the meantime, please.
Thanks, Darren. Hi, Alan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Alan, could you just sum up what the last few weeks have been like, so close to getting your hands on the keys to the club and finally it being yours?
I would say anxiousness, depression, excitedness, freezing. There's a lot of different emotions over the last few weeks. But I would say the overriding one is pure joy in the fact that we finally came to conclusion. I think the excitement that we've had to finally get here is coming to fruition. The disappointment is we're now back in another lockdown. We were certainly not expecting, certainly not hoping, but at the end of the day, we are where we are. But that doesn't change the excitement that we've had to get here, and the last couple of weeks have really kind of brought that home.
You'll be one of a very small number of people to take control of a club during such dire circumstances in this country, Alan. Does it worry you at all?
It worries me a lot more, probably, Andy, for how people are suffering for another lockdown. I mean, I'll take it from a personal perspective. Look, this is my third lockdown here in this country. Okay, it's not at all pleasant. Okay, the first two were in a small flat in London, and that's hard. That's really hard. And the first one I actually was lucky enough to be with my daughter for the whole time. Second one without family. And this one, I'm here with some of my partners, and it's hard if you're by yourself. And so, I don't think that is but what I am very excited about is at least this time I've already burned through everything on Netflix and Amazon. So I've got live sport to at least watch, which if they'd taken that away, that would be even tougher. But look, I don't think this is pleasant for anyone, and this is a tough one. So I hope this gets done as soon as possible and we get vaccinated as quickly as possible.
You've mentioned already the importance of communication. The fact that Burnley fans probably will not have been to Turf Moor for a year or more by the time they're allowed to. Just how much more important is communicating with these people who are your fan base, who don't feel quite as part of it as they always have before?
So you know what? I think it's hugely important because I think it's like family. So every one of you can relate to the fact that you haven't been able to be with loved ones that you would like to be with. I don't think there's a single one of us that haven't been in that position. So look, I very much understand that both as a community, as a fan base, people love this place. It's like this is their family, this is their home, and they're not being allowed to be in their home. And that's got to be tough. So I think it's really, really important that we keep the communication. I mean, think about being in lockdown and not having Zoom or not having phones, how difficult that has to be for folks. So this is kind of like that. They're not able to actually get there. So we've got to do a really good job of actually sharing things that are happening so that they feel part of it and we can bring them back in as soon as possible.
And the overall feeling, though, is excitement. The supporters have shown their excitement to you on social media as well, haven't they? You're a chairman on social media. There's not many of you. Are you going to be staying on there no matter what?
So no matter what, that's tough. Okay, I would like to. Look, there's been many people much greater than I and much more important than I that have taken abuse on social media that's just not right. Okay, so as long as people treat people fairly and nicely, I don't see any reason not to, because it's a great form to communicate with people. But that's what it is. It's a communication tool, and it really is. I think it's very important to be on it. There's certain, there are certain formats within social media that I don't do anything on, but I do think that there's got to be a way to communicate and stay involved communicating long term, as long as people are respectful. And I think that if we've learned nothing in the last 2 years globally, we have to be respectful of each other. And if that happens, yeah, I'll be on here forever.
Best of luck, Alan. Thanks ever so much for your time.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Andy. With Simon Stone, please, BBC.
Hi, Alan. Hope you're okay. Thanks for this. Just in terms of lockdown, obviously the financial pressures on the Premier League clubs and any football club are huge. Did you at any point think this is not the right time and back away?
Probably every other day for about a year. Now, seriously, yes, at multiple points. I think when we went into the lockdown last year, we really had to think long and hard as to what was it going to look like. It took us a decent amount of time to kind of figure it out, what it was going to be like. I don't think anyone knew back then. Project Restart really helped us to understand kind of what was going to be possible. But yes, multiple occasions, thought, this just wasn't going to be for us.
And just in terms of owners, just locally to Burnley, we've had Blackburn, Wigan, Bolton, Blackpool for various reasons their fans have had issues with their owners. We've had other American owners in the Premier League, Arsenal, Manchester United, who have not exactly endeared themselves to supporters, and also at Villa and at Sunderland. What makes you think that your brand of American ownership can win favour with a club who has been stable and, as you say, overachieved over years?
Well, look, the main reason, because I don't think that you've ever seen anyone like me. And you certainly haven't seen someone like me come in to run a football club and interact with the community and live in the community that they're going to own and operate. I mean, I would be reticent to say that nobody's ever done it at this level. But to be honest, I think that you're going to have a level of interaction if you're a fan and you're local that's just very different. And we actually do honestly mean it when we say we are concerned about the long-term viability of this club, just as if we were a family member. So we're not going to do stupid stuff. We may say silly things that people actually, take umbrage with, but at the end of the day, we think we're going to act differently, and we're going to certainly show that in everything that we do.
And just finally from me, in terms of Burnley as a club, when you look around the Premier League, you've got new teams promoted teams like Leeds and like West Brom, who come from a big conurbation, Aston Villa, clubs similar size like Watford and maybe even smaller like Bournemouth went down last year. Do you think there is a place in the Premier League for a club like Burnley, and it doesn't have to be a big city team all the time?
Absolutely. Coming back to a question that was asked previously, I think that's what makes this league so special. The ability for teams to come in and out of this league and to leave a mark, even if it's temporarily from some of the clubs, and create a whole new story each time is fantastic. I mean, I honestly believe that people in this country don't know what they have. They really don't know the jewel that is here, and they don't necessarily value it as much as people outside do. And I think that you should be very, very proud that you can actually take a small market club that can play in the biggest league in the world, and they can have an impact, and they can beat almost any team on any given day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We'll go to James Cylinder and his dog, please.
I'll just put her away. Hi, Alan. How you doing?
I'm good, James. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Alan, how did you find the process itself of gaining approval from the Premier League? Because the actual process itself took a bit of criticism with what happened with Newcastle a few months ago.
Look, I can't speak to anybody else's process, so I can only speak to mine, and to ours. And I would say, look, I thought it was very thoughtful. It was very thorough, and it asked the right questions. And I think that that's all we should expect from the greatest league in the world, is to go through the process, look at what is being asked, and see what is responded to. That's it.
And one thing you said when you first joined the club was that you wanted to drive evolution and innovation and make the club and the town more desirable. How do you plan on doing that?
Well, we need to, work with the stakeholders in doing that. So, look, I think there's a lot of things that we can bring to the table, but you have a great asset with the club to bring people around a table to discuss that and think about it. I'm sure there's things that, whether it's innovation side or just, investment side or other things that just make things a little bit more attractive from different angles. But I can't even begin to tell you, James, as to how we do that, because it's a whole lot of voices that need to come to that table and think about what's best for this particular community, different than other communities, and how do we help in doing that.
And just finally for me, in terms of the evolution of the squad, we saw what happened when Roman Abramovich came into Chelsea, spent a lot of money straight away. Do you think it will be a little bit more careful? Do you think it will be a sprinkling of players coming in through the first few transfer windows at least?
Well, I have to leave that to Sean, okay, because that's really Sean's domain. But I would expect that we'll be thoughtful in the process, because that's what Sean has always done. He's always looked at what does he need and how does he want to go about achieving his goals, and we will be very supportive in making sure that he can achieve his goals.
Brilliant. Thanks for your time, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Eleanor, do you want to say anything from Pierre?
Yes, please. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Eleanor.
Hi. Yeah, you talked about the fans there, and obviously we've seen you interacting with them on Twitter. What's kind of been the biggest message you've had from the fans so far?
Keep talking, but probably don't say too much. So, no, but look, it's a bit strange. It's kind of like maybe meeting your future in-laws for the first time. You don't really know how you're going to be received, and is it going to be a disastrous meal and you're never going back, or are they going to embrace and say you're a long lost family member? So it's been nice to see. So they feel that we haven't done anything wrong yet. Feels a little bit like a honeymoon period, and we'd like to keep it that way, but we're going to listen. So hopefully they see that. We like to listen, and we like to respond thoughtfully.
I mean, obviously Sean's talked a lot about his frustrations in the transfer window over the past couple of years, and increasingly Burnley have found it hard to compete with other Premier League clubs. They've been signing players from the Championship. I mean, do you think that will change? Can you say that Burnley will be able to compete with other Premier League clubs this summer?
Well, I think the first one is I don't expect Sean to be frustrated. Okay, I can answer that directly, that I hope that he will be, pleased with the way that we can support him and interact with him, and that will be our efforts on a constant basis. Do I think that we can achieve things greater than our current means? Yes, I do, and I think we've got work to do to be able to do that. But I certainly believe in it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, and I know you said that obviously it'll be up to Sean which players he wants to pursue, but would you like to see Burnley maybe look at a bit more international in terms of the signings? Obviously, most of the signings have been from within Britain.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, you've got, so yes, I think that there is a role for, a broader mix of players to be, possibly considered, but there's a lot of factors. I mean, with Brexit and, the new regulations as to how we have to, bring people. It's not just to do it. It's to do it because it's the right thing for the club and it's the right thing for the mix. So what I would say is that there will be a time and a place, and that all things should be considered. But it comes down to what's the team and the culture of that team and who fits on it. I don't think that really is determined by where that they're playing currently or what nationality or anything else. I just think that certain aspects have probably led us to where we are.
Yeah, and not to finish on a negative at all, but I mean, how essential is staying in the Premier League to your vision for Burnley and what you've bought into?
So, look, I think it's important, but not essential, okay? It's important because the same reason you have over 1 billion people that see you and interact with you when you're in the Premier League. You don't have that same opportunity when you're, not there. So you want to be on that stage. It's like being an actor or an actress. You want to be on the main stage. You don't really want to have to always be wondering, can you be on that stage? So it's important, but it also doesn't mean that you don't feel like you can go and make an artsy movie sometime.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Eleanor. Laura Pratt, please, from Global.
Hello, thank you for your time. I was just going to ask about the loan that was financed, that was needed to finance the takeover. How will Burnley be able to pay that back, especially under the COVID restrictions? And do you think that it could affect what you can do on the field in terms of signing players and things like that?
So, let's take a step back to the first part of that question. So, it's a good question. I do believe that when you look at anything, whether it be personal or business related, that there's a way to be financially responsible in your dealings that is sustainable. And I think that to answer your question, the loans that we have involved in this particular transaction are absolutely reasonable and absolutely in line with what can be supported by this club and will not take away from the ability to operate on a daily basis.
And you mentioned the fans and how important, obviously, the club is to people living in Burnley. What do you think they will make of this? And are there any differences that they will see now that you've come in?
Can I just get you to clarify when you say make of this? Make of having, taken a loan, or what are you referring to?
Well, the you coming into this role and being the chairman now.
Well,
sorry, I should have made more clear.
No, that's okay. So look, I hope, kind of back to my point of like meeting your in-laws, I hope they look at it and say, hey, you're not that bad of a guy, and you look like someone we can, hang around with. And so I hope that they're accepting of us and they want to let us into their family. That's the best way. That's my hope. And we'll see how that goes.
Do you think there will be any differences that they'll see now that you are here?
Well, other than the way that we communicate, I hope that there'll be a lot of differences. So I hope that they've seen that we're fairly open. I like to think very open, and we like to communicate because we like to hear. I have no problem, and I actually encourage it when if I do something silly, tell me. If I do something really stupid, probably don't tell me right away. Give me a shot. But there will be both that will happen. So I think there will be some things that they'll notice besides the communication. I think we have some really interesting plans for the club. And coming back to those building blocks we talked about earlier. But I really think that we've got to get some time to really work with the staff and really kind of develop out that vision that we have with their strategy that they have had, and be able to see how we bring those things together.
And finally, other than the football club, now that you're living here, what is your favourite thing about Burnley?
Well, I right now it's Turf Moor and Tesco, because those are the only two places I can go. so unfortunately, I haven't seen a whole lot. But look, it's beautiful up here. Okay, I've spent a lot of my time most people won't know, but my kids are actually born in London, and we've lived in London for a very, very long time, in and out of New York and London, back and forth. So it's beautiful up here, and I love it. But I can't tell you that I really know the area, because I really haven't got to do much more than be in quarantine or be in lockdown now.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Other supermarkets are available. Simon Evans, Pally from Roasters.
Sorry. You got a really nice one. It's big. It's got a lot of selection.
Simon, over to you.
There's butchers you got to check out when you can. Yeah. There's always a lot of talk when American owners come in about the brand and so on, and I know obviously there are clubs in the Premier League that could legitimately be called a global brand. Do you see Burnley as having any potential realistically of benefiting from that global nature of the Premier League in terms of the American market or the Asian market, and looking at possible commercial opportunities out there? Well,
look, coming back to my view of the Premier League, I think it's, absolutely every club in it can benefit from the international scope of this league. I mean, how you do that is what the most important part of it is, Simon. I mean, I think it's hard for people to realize that view and that vision when you're spending most of your time focused on just staying, it's like just staying afloat in an ocean. You don't really get the chance to actually see what's around you, and what you could possibly do. Some clubs have done some amazing things and don't get as much credit as they should get for it. But yes, I do think it's possible, and I do think that any club that's, fortunate enough to play their way into and be in the Premier League should benefit from it, because that's the whole great thing about the Premier League. It gives that opportunity to so many clubs, and it's just actually capitalizing on it, which isn't as easy as people think.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of how, Burnley's image, as it were, in those countries, I mean, Fulham at one time had quite a lot of following in America because of Clint Dempsey and other American players there, Bocanegra and so on. But do you think, how could Burnley capture the sort of imagination of Premier League fans who watch NBC on a Saturday morning, for example?
Well, I made it, I would say you got to give them a reason to connect with things that are happening here. That may be a player, that may be the style of play, that may be a manager, that may be the atmosphere that takes place here. There's a number of different things that can absolutely have that level of impact. It's a matter of, okay, how do you not just artificially create it, but make it genuine, real, and long-lasting?
And you've mentioned the possibility of looking at having a partner club in Europe or abroad. How do you envisage that? Is that like some kind of agreement, or more like the Manchester City model of actually owning a club? What's your thinking on that one?
So it's probably a little early to share all of our thinking. So I appreciate that. But I would say, yes, it's really important, especially on the back of Brexit. And a lot of clubs are already doing this. So it's not something that, I just created overnight. There's an important role for other club and club relationships for not just Premier League teams, but throughout the country in developing talent. Developing talent is unique. If I was a player, I want, first team minutes. If I can't get them at my club, but my club can give me opportunities at other clubs to get those first team minutes, then I would want to see that as a real opportunity for me to develop as a player. So that we think is really important. For other clubs, it may be branding. For clubs beyond that, it may be other commercial opportunities. I can see a lot of different ways for that. For us, it's probably more on the player development side, and those relationships may be, as you described them, anything from ownership all the way through to strategic relationships, if you will.
And just specifically on this transition period, I noticed that Mike Garlick and John B are staying involved in the club. Could you give us a bit more detail on what their role would be and the thinking behind that?
Well, their role is exactly what you just described, which is that they're staying involved in the club on the board. We thought it was really important that as coming in as, if you will, new participants or new members of this family that's here, taking that all on by ourselves without any semblance of advice or experience would be very silly on our part. Having two key individuals that have been involved for quite some time and have gotten the building blocks put in place very much in line with what we talked about earlier was really important. So having them both to help us on the board think about things, give us their wisdom on experience of how they've dealt with things, that's super important. It's also so that we don't make, again, silly mistakes that could be avoided by just listening.
Just the absolute last one from me. When you look around, you talked a bit about innovation and new ideas and so on. When you look around the sort of European football or the world football landscape, are there any clubs there that you look at and think that could be a model for Burnley, or that you could draw from particularly?
In different ways. We haven't seen one that I would say incorporates all of the aspects that we're thinking about, but there are pieces in different places. I'm not going to necessarily point them out right this second, but I would tell you that there, in some places it may be the way that they have the fan experience. In other places it may be the way that their talent is developed. In other places it may be their use of technology. In other places, some of the media assets and how they've developed those. But yes, there are absolutely, listen, we're not the smartest guy in the room, okay? We didn't just create everything. But we do believe that with a lot of hard work and with the help of a lot of people, we can take some of these great ideas and actually bring them together in a different way that specifically resonate with this club and with this family.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
You're welcome.
Hello, Clarets fans. Phil Bird here. Make sure you subscribe to Burnley's official YouTube channel and turn on notifications. Otherwise, you might miss moments like this. Oh, what a goal! And Wood was there to finish it.
You're spitting Glenn Little, look at us.
Enjoy the video, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Up the Clarets.